Hey there, I'm Kestrel, and welcome. Thanks for checking me out. It really means a lot to me as a new channel. I hope you guys enjoy the few stories I have for you today. If you do, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more videos in the future. Also, I wanted to ask if you prefer the longer stories or if you like the shorter stories better. Let me know down below. Now let's get right into it. I've served the church for over 3 decades. I've baptized newborns, buried sinners, and offered last rites to the dying. And once, just once, I performed an exorcism. They say if you survive one, you're marked forever. I used to believe that meant spiritually strengthened, armored by faith. Now I know better. I started on a Monday, cold, wet. The letter came in by courier, not email, not phone, but a sealed parchment like something out of another century. I was summoned by the Diocese of Lancaster, a small, long-forgotten parish in rural Pennsylvania. A child had begun to act unnaturally. They'd already gone through 2 local priests. Both had left, shaken, refusing to return. They didn't elaborate. I packed my kit, rosary, crucifix, vial of holy water, and the ritual Romanum, and drove out the next morning. Further I got from the city, the quieter it became. Trees hung over the winding roads like crooked fingers. Cell reception died miles back. It was dusk when I reached the Crenshaw house. It looked abandoned, 2 stories of sagging timber, and stained glass windows gone opaque with age. Ivy clung to the walls like veins, and a withered scarecrow leaned in the yard, facing the house instead of the fields. I knocked once. An old woman answered, Mrs. Crenshaw. She looked exhausted, skin like paper, hands trembling. She said only, she's upstairs, and backed away into the dark like she couldn't bear to see it again. I ascended the creaking staircase, candlelight flickering under a door at the far end of the hall. I felt it before I opened it, the cold, the pressure. The room was deeper than the rest of the house. Inside sat a girl, no older than 11. Her name was Abigail. She wasn't tied down. She wasn't foaming at the mouth. She was just sitting cross-legged on the bed, tracing shapes into the bedsheets. When I entered, she looked up and smiled, and spoke my name. Not Father Thomas, not Sir, my birth name. One I hadn't used since before seminary. One I hadn't told anyone in decades. She said it like an old friend greeting me after years apart. I asked how she knew it. She giggled. You told me a long time ago. I opened the Book of Rites, and she interrupted before I could begin. Don't bother, she said. He already knows you're here. The candle behind her flickered blue. The next few hours were wrong. I read the scripture. I blessed the room. I sprinkled holy water. Nothing. She didn't scream or convulse. She didn't beg me to stop. She just watched me, head tilted like a curious bird. When I tried Latin, she corrected my pronunciation. When I held up the crucifix, she asked if it still hurt to touch. And then, she began talking about my mother. Details no one should have known. The lullabies she sang, the night she died, the last words she said, words I never repeated to another soul. That was the first crack in the armor, but it got worse. That night I tried to sleep in the guest room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, heart racing for no reason I could name. At some point, I must have drifted off. When I woke, I was standing at the foot of Abigail's bed, book in one hand, candle in the other. I had no memory of leaving the guest room. She was awake, of course, watching me. You used to do this, she whispered, when you were little. I dropped the book, left the room, locked the doors behind me, and said every prayer I could remember. The next day, the house began to shift. I don't mean the walls moved. I mean, it remembered me. Pictures on the walls I didn't recognize now featured faces I'd known in childhood. A smell in the hallway, burned sage and candle wax, brought back a memory of a place I had no reason to recall. I found a box in the attic. Inside were drawings, children's scribbles. I recognized one, a boy, holding a black hand, and in the corner, my birth name. I don't know how long I stood there. That night the whispering began, not from Abigail's room, from mine. Voices under the bed, in the walls, in the mirror. They said things I hadn't thought about in years, things I'd buried deep, old sins, forgotten nights, a basement I hadn't set foot in since I was 10, a ritual I'd been part of, one I had blocked from memory, or thought I had. The third morning, I went to confront her. She wasn't in her room. I found her in the basement, sitting inside a chalk circle that pulsed with red light. The air was thick, alive. She looked up. "Welcome home," she said. "It's time." And then it all came back to me. This wasn't my first exorcism. I wasn't the priest. I was the subject. This was the house I grew up in. The Crenshaws had been the name of the foster family that raised me, briefly, before everything went wrong. There had been a priest back then. He tried to save me. He failed. And whatever was inside me left, or so they thought. But it hadn't gone far. It had gone dormant, buried beneath years of ritual, devotion, and denial. And now, standing in that basement, staring into Abigail's eyes, I saw the truth. The demon hadn't brought her here, it had brought me. She was bait, an echo, a mirror, something to pull the memory out of me and loosen the seal. And it worked. The room bent inward, my knees buckled. I dropped the crucifix and felt something move in my chest, something that had been waiting. Abigail stepped out of the circle. "You were never cleansed," she said gently. "You were caged." I tried to run. I never made it up the stairs. I remember the wood closing over me like a coffin. I remember the chanting, not hers, mine. The voice from my mouth wasn't my own. The laugh wasn't human. I woke 3 days later in a hospital. The Crenshaw house had burned to the ground. No sign of the girl, no proof I had ever been there. Only the rosary in my pocket, scorched and blackened. I never went back to priesthood. I don't sleep much. Because sometimes, when the room gets quiet enough, I can still hear her voice, calling me by my name. Not the one the world knows me by, the real one, the one he remembers. People don't call Harrow's Creek exciting. That's fine by me. We've got one main street, 2 diners, 3 bars, and a local paper that's still printed on an ancient press. The last big story we had was a deer getting stuck in the hardware store last winter. But every so often, the rot beneath the quiet peels back just enough to remind you that normal is a fragile thing. That reminder came on October 17th at 2:43 a.m. My radio squawked, sharp and tiny, in the dead silence of my living room. Unit 1, we've got a 1054, possible 1037 Sierra, just past the old Tanner Orchard. Civilian report came in anonymously. Possible body. I was halfway through a bottle of lukewarm beer and fully committed to staying on my recliner until sunrise. But a possible corpse on a dead man's land had a way of dragging you out of comfort. I tossed the beer in the sink, holstered my badge and .38, and rolled out into the dark. Tanner Orchard sat just west of town, a stretch of fenced-in, overgrown land where apples used to grow sweeter than anything in the state, until the fire in '92. Most folks forgot about it after that. Some swore the fire was arson. Others said it was cleansing. Now, it's just a blackened patch of forest and a crumbling barn. I took the patrol cruiser up the dirt path. Headlights swept over frost-covered grass, trees stripped bare, their bark twisted like arthritic fingers. About 300 yards in, I found the body, and everything stopped. It was a man, mid-40s, face half gone. His shirt had been torn off, his chest carved with symbols I couldn't place. Sharp spirals, hooked crosses, and a circle, clean and precise, cut dead center into his sternum. His arms were spread wide, palms up, fingers broken. The look on his face wasn't terror, it was peace. And around him, there was a circle. Not just blood, salt, bone fragments, ash, and something else. A thick, dark smear that glistened in the light like oil, but smelled like metal and vinegar. I've seen suicides, overdoses, beatings, stabbings, but this was something else. The wind shifted, brought with it the faintest sound, like whispering, but not words, just intent. I snapped my flashlight up. Nothing. Just the creaking of bare branches. Still, I felt it. That hair on neck prickling you get when you're being watched. I called it in, requested backup. Riley was already en route. But while I waited, I did what I knew I shouldn't. I stepped into the circle, and that's when I saw it. Just beyond the body, nestled in the dirt. A mask, made of bark, woven with strips of cloth, and something sinewy that looked disturbingly like tendon. It had no eyes, just black holes and an open mouth stretched too wide. I picked it up, gloved, careful, and for a split second, I swear I heard breathing. Not mine, not human. Riley showed up 10 minutes later, flashlight in one hand, coffee in the other. She took one look at the scene and stopped cold. Jesus Christ, she muttered. You touch anything? Just the mask. It was lying here. Looks handmade. She crouched by the body, her jaw tight. You recognize the victim? I nodded. Martin Briggs, librarian, single, quiet. Used to coach Little League 10 years back. No history of violence? No history of anything. She swept her light across the ground. This isn't random. Someone wanted us to find him like this. This is a statement. I agreed. I just didn't know who it was for. We sealed the scene, collected evidence, bagged the mask, and sent the body to the county coroner. I went home at dawn, cold to the bone. I washed my hands 3 times, but they still felt wrong, like the dirt had gotten under my skin. I didn't sleep that day, not because every time I closed my eyes, I saw the mask, not just lying in the dirt, but worn and smiling. They ruled it a homicide. County coroner listed the cause of death as exsanguination, preceded by massive internal trauma and unidentifiable ritualistic wounds. But that's not what bothered me. What bothered me was how little the blood had spread, how the dirt inside the circle had absorbed it all, like it was thirsty. I couldn't stop thinking about the mask, how it smelled, earthy and coppery, how the holes for the eyes were just wide enough to see in, but not through. I kept it in evidence, locked it up tight, but I still dreamed about it. Riley went digging while I handled the press, or rather, kept them away. Local paper ran it up as a tragic, mysterious killing. I told them not to speculate. Didn't matter. People speculated anyway. Satanic panic, drug cults, cartel hit. They were all wrong. Riley came into the station late on Wednesday. Her hair was a mess and her eyes were bloodshot. She tossed a manila folder on the desk. You're gonna want to read this, she said. I opened it. Old police reports from before my time, faded, typewritten, the same location, Tanner Orchard, the same month, October, the same kind of crime, missing person, always found a week later, always mutilated, always arranged. One case from 1977 mentioned a circle of ash and bone. Another in 1984, geometric carvings consistent with occult ritual. Each case 7 years apart. No arrests, no suspects. 7 years, 7 sacrifices. The last one was 2015. A girl named Elise Harper, 17, vanished on her way home from school. Body never found. This year made 8. Why don't we know about this? I asked, thumbing through the pages. Riley shrugged. Town buried it. Small departments, small files. We don't digitize like the big cities. Someone didn't want the pattern seen. Think it's a serial killer? No, it's something older. I talked to a professor at the state college, specialist in European folklore. I emailed him a photo of the carvings from Martin's body. And she pulled out her phone and opened an image. It was one of those symbols, the circle with uneven points. The professor said this is pre-Christian, tied to fertility cults, mostly in rural parts of Germany and Eastern Europe, supposed to ensure bountiful harvests in exchange for blood. I laughed, bitter. Not a lot of crops growing at Tanner's Orchard. That's the thing, she said. The original beliefs were never about crops. The term harvest was metaphorical. They believed the world was watched by something beneath it, and the sacrifice was to keep it sleeping. My stomach tightened. You believe any of that? She met my eyes. I believe someone does. That night, the dreams got worse. I stood in a circle of stone, not dirt, surrounded by masked figures. The masks moved, shifted like they were breathing. They chanted in a language I'd never heard, but somehow understood. Each word felt like a cut against my skin. Then the ground cracked beneath my feet, and something looked back at me. I woke up with a nosebleed and dirt under my fingernails. My hands were shaking. I checked the door, locked. Window, closed. My boots, still damp from the rain earlier that day, were covered in mud. 2 days later, a second mask appeared. It was in my mailbox. No envelope, no note, just a mask, smaller than the first, made up of stitched burlap and twigs, mouth sewn shut. Inside, tucked behind the rough fabric, was a single object, a tooth, a human tooth. Riley and I agreed to go back to the orchard in daylight. We brought flashlights, gloves, and every legal excuse we had to be out there. The scene had already been cleared, but something told us the surface was just that, the surface. We combed the area for hours, pushing past the brambles, following faint trails where the grass didn't grow. That's when Riley found it, a cellar door, half covered by moss and branches, hidden beneath the remains of an old well. Iron hinges, no lock. We opened it. The air that came out was cold and wrong, like it hadn't been disturbed in a very, very long time. We looked at each other, no words needed, and went in. What we found wasn't a basement, not really. It was a tunnel, stone-lined, sloping downward, barely wide enough for 2 people shoulder to shoulder. There were markings on the walls, not painted, scratched, etched with something sharp. Same spirals, same turning stars. Halfway down, Riley stopped and aimed her flashlight at the floor. More bones, arranged, bleached clean, and in the center of the space, a circle, drawn in ash. No body this time, but something worse. A journal, bound in leather, old. We took it. Back at the station, we wore gloves to handle it. The journal was written in a mix of English and something else. Latin, maybe? Or something pretending to be. The earliest entries dated back to 1853. It spoke of the Hollow Circle, a group of believers who worshipped the Watcher beneath the earth. The writer detailed rituals, the preparation of the site, the markings, the use of blood, always from someone untainted by modernity. 7 years between sacrifices, each one feeding the threshold, each one widening the gate. The final entry was dated October 13th, 1892. It read, "The harvest is ready. The circle will be whole once more. I have seen the eyes in the dark. I know his voice now. I go gladly into the hollow." The page after that was torn out. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Riley. We both knew what this meant. Someone had picked up where that journal left off. The cult never died. They just waited, and now they'd chosen again. I stared at the mask from the mailbox, resting on the edge of my desk, just barely illuminated by the lamp. I don't know what compelled me to do it. Maybe it was the lack of sleep. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something else. But I picked it up, held it in front of my face, and for the briefest second, the air shifted, like a breath on the back of my neck. Then the radio crackled. "Unit 1, we've got a report. Civilian disturbance behind the old mill road. Screaming heard. Might be another body." I dropped the mask and grabbed my gun, because whether I liked it or not, the circle was turning again. The call led us to a trailer on Mill Road, maybe a half a mile from the river bend. A couple out for a midnight walk had heard screaming. We rolled up fast, lights off, guns ready. When we got there, the place was quiet. Too quiet. The door was open. Riley led, and I followed. Inside, we found a man, mid-60s, gaunt, gray beard down to his chest. His body was still warm, blood pooled under his chair. Wrists sliced open with a broken piece of mirror. No sign of struggle, but it wasn't suicide. Not really, because drawn in blood on the walls, on every surface, every cabinet, and every window was the circle. The same symbol from the orchard, bigger now, sharper, finished. Riley was pale. She pointed at something carved into the man's forearm. I leaned closer. A name. Sam Mercer. The department was quiet when we returned. I didn't speak for a while. I sat at my desk staring at the name carved into that dead man's arm. Riley stood by the window, flipping through the journal again. Then she said it. "I think this town was built around it." I looked up. The cult, the rituals, the hollow circle. I think Harrow's Creek didn't grow over it by accident. I think it was designed this way. She dropped the journal onto the desk and opened the town charter on her laptop. She had city records dating back to 1805, property lines, church registries, tax ledgers. She highlighted the original 10 property owners. 9 of them had the same symbol, the spiral star, etched into their land deeds. One of them was a pastor, another a judge. I leaned in. "These weren't just townsfolk," I said. "These were leaders." She nodded. "And if their descendants stayed in town, they could be anywhere." We started looking, quietly, carefully. A clerk at City Hall with a strange scar behind his ear. A school superintendent who disappeared for 2 weeks every 7 years. A funeral director who never let anyone else touch the embalming room. Patterns formed, names repeated, and in the middle of it all, the Hollow Society. That's what they called themselves, at least, according to one loose-lipped drunk who used to clean the mayor's office. A social club, Invite only. Mostly old money, he said. Real secretive. Used to meet under the library before it flooded. I asked what they did down there. He just stared at me. They listen. We found the tunnel entrance 2 nights later, behind the old stone church on Langford. Beneath a rusted drain cover, it led down into a sub-basement, brick-walled, with ceilings too low and walls too tight. But it was real, and it stank. Rot, mold, copper. At the end of the hall, we found a door, iron and cold, etched with the symbol again, but this time it glowed faintly in the dark, like embers under ash. Riley raised her camera, took one picture, the flash went off, and then everything died. The lights, her phone, my flashlight, even our radios, gone, just black. I drew my weapon, Riley did the same, but then came the sound. A creaking groan, like wood bending under weight, and the whispers, soft at first, like wind through tall grass. Then louder, closer, voices from all sides, speaking in unison. The circle remains unbroken. The seed was planted in blood. Now it flowers in flesh. We ran. I don't remember getting out, just the cold air hitting my lungs as we stumbled back onto the street. When we got back to the station, we played the recording on Riley's camera. The photo had captured something we hadn't seen. A figure, tall, shadowed, wearing a mask. Not bark, not burlap. This one was made of bone, and it was standing behind us. We both agreed this wasn't just a ritual, it was a cycle. The hollow circle wasn't a group, it was a machine. Every 7 years, it demands blood, and someone or something chooses who gets taken. But this time, they left a name, my name. Riley wanted to leave, run, forget the case, burn the evidence, vanish. But I couldn't. I had to know why. Why me? Why now? So I went to the library. The new one, not the old building that burned down in 1993. The current branch sat on the exact same spot, clean and modern, with too few windows and far too much silence. The librarian, a twitchy man named Lewis, recognized me. I asked for archives of the town's founding. He hesitated. Then he pointed me to the basement. Downstairs, among stacks of forgotten books and yellowed newspapers, I found the file. Harrows Creek Founding Trust, established 1807 by 9 men, the same names Riley had found earlier. But inside the folder was something else. A map of the town, overlaid with a circle, a perfect one. The Tanner property sat at the southern edge, the church on the northern, City Hall to the west, and the police station right at the center. A single word was scrawled in red across the middle of the map: vessel. I heard something above me, like footsteps, only slower, wet. I stuffed the map into my coat and bolted. As I climbed the stairs, I glanced back down into the stacks. I saw a mask, bone white, motionless, watching. I didn't sleep the night I found the map. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the words scrawled across the center: vessel. Like I wasn't a person anymore, just a container, something to be used. I didn't tell Riley, not yet. I kept the map folded in my desk drawer, locked under my badge, and I carried my sidearm everywhere, even inside the station, just in case. Riley kept pushing. She was angry, not scared, not yet, but angry. She said the department wouldn't help. The state wouldn't help. No one could help if this went as deep as we thought. She wanted to go public. I told her no, not yet. We needed proof, something they couldn't ignore. We got a tip 2 days later. Anonymous call. Male voice, raspy, calm. I know where they meet, he said. I can take you there, but only him. Only me. He said the words like he already knew I'd agree, and I did, because some part of me had already decided this was my job, this was my fate. I told Riley I was following a lead on my own. I didn't tell her who called. I didn't tell her where I was going. I left my location ping on, just in case. The man met me at the edge of town. He wore a coat too heavy for the weather, and a ball cap pulled low. Never looked me in the eye. He didn't introduce himself. He just walked into the woods. I followed. We moved in silence for half a mile, deeper than I'd ever gone. No paths, no light, no sounds but our own footsteps. Eventually we came to a clearing. It was old, older than the town. Stone pillars at the edges, cracked and moss-covered. In the center stood an altar, and around it 6 people, all wearing masks. Bark, bone, burlap, twine. One of them turned to me. I recognized his eyes. The mayor. Detective Mercer, he said, removing the mask slowly. You're right on time. And that's when I knew I'd walked into a trap. I went for my gun. Too slow. Something cracked against the back of my head. I hit the ground. Black. When I came to, I was underground. Stone walls, wet, dripping. My hands were bound above me, arms pulled taut against a rusted pipe. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. The air was thick, alive, like it carried memory, rot, grief, and something else. Anticipation. A door creaked open. Footsteps echoed. The mayor entered, mask in hand. He smiled. This is bigger than you, he said. It always was. I didn't respond. He didn't need me to. He pulled a stool close and sat down like we were just 2 old friends talking over coffee. We are the keepers, he said. We honor the old contract. Blood for silence, flesh for peace. It has worked for centuries, and it must continue. I spat at his feet, but he didn't flinch. You should be honored, he said. The Watcher chose you, not us, not the council, him, and what he chooses is his. They prepped me that night, cut the shirt from my back, painted symbols onto my skin. The whole time they hummed, not a song, a vibration. It settled in my bones like a fever. When they placed the mask over my face, I screamed, not because it hurt, because I could feel it breathing. They led me through a tunnel, deeper still. The walls changed from stone to flesh. Veins pulsed on the rocks. Something dripped from the ceiling, thick and white. The air buzzed. I heard voices whispering from inside the walls, familiar voices. My father, Riley, Martin Briggs, even my own. Over and over, the circle turns, the vessel opens. We reached the chamber. It wasn't man-made. It couldn't be. It was a dome, impossibly wide, lit by a shaft of pale red light from above. Carvings lined the walls, depictions of human forms kneeling before a towering figure with no face and too many hands. In the center was a stone slab, stained, cracked, ready. They placed me on it, bound me in silence. The mayor raised a blade, curved, old. He began the chant. I felt it stir beneath me, like the stone was hollow, like something inside was waking up. That's when I saw her, Riley, crouching at the edge of the chamber, gun drawn, eyes wide. She mouthed 2 words. On 3. I didn't wait for one. I twisted my wrist, dislocating my thumb and pulling free. The mayor lunged at me with his blade. Riley fired a shot. Chaos erupted. Blood sprayed across the altar. The cult screamed, not in fear, but in rage. The mayor dropped, not dead, just stunned. I grabbed the knife and ran, not toward Riley, but deeper into the tunnels. I had to end it. Down the path, past the roots, past the statues that watched but didn't move, I reached the lowest chamber. Inside, the original circle, painted in blood, rimmed in bone, but incomplete. One symbol missing, the final mark. I remembered the journal, the torn page, the vessel. I knew what I had to do. I slashed my palm, let the blood fall into the empty mark. The circle closed, and the chamber shook. A sound, not noise, but thought, pressed against my mind. Something, not awake, screamed in confusion. I had broken the pattern. Or maybe I just started a new one. I ran. I found Riley bleeding by the exit. We made it to daylight. The sun burned. Like the world had changed while we were gone. Maybe it had. I never saw the mayor again. No bodies were recovered. The tunnels collapsed in on themselves like they'd never existed. No one believed us, but that's fine, because I know what I saw, and what saw me. I don't remember leaving the chamber, not really. There are pieces, flashes, blood in my eyes, Riley's hand grabbing mine, the sound of the earth screaming from underneath. The rest is a blur. What I do remember is the way the tunnel shook as we ran, not like an earthquake, but like something angry was shifting beneath the floor, coiling and writhing, like we'd woken it, or worse, disappointed it. The roots bled. The walls breathed. I heard voices behind us, but not human ones. No footsteps, just laughter, and a sound like bones breaking in rhythm. We ran, no path, just darkness. At one point, Riley stumbled. I pulled her up, and her sleeve slid down. Her arm had a mark burned into the skin, a spiral, faint but alive. I didn't let them touch me, she whispered. I swear. I nodded. They didn't have to. We found a hatch eventually, stone and rusted iron. We pushed through it like rats escaping a drain pipe. When we emerged, the sky had changed. Not just the time, the color. It was still night, but wrong. Purple clouds bled into amber stars. The moon looked like it was upside down. The trees leaned in strange directions, like they were watching. We didn't go back to town. We couldn't. The map from the archives, the charter, the tunnel, it all made sense now. Harrow's Creek wasn't a town with a cult problem. It was the cult. The roads curved in perfect spirals. The buildings formed runes from above. Even the graveyards positioned like teeth around a mouth. Riley wanted to burn it all. I told her it wouldn't work. You can't burn what isn't fully here. You can only close the door. And I had. Or at least I hoped I had. But the thing about closing a door is sometimes what's on the other side leaves a part of itself behind. We made it to Riley's car by sunrise, parked at the edge of a service road 2 miles out. She drove. I stared out the window, still holding the knife they'd meant to kill me with. It pulsed in my hand, not warm, not cold, just aware. We didn't talk until we were across county lines. That's when Riley asked me something I've never forgotten. Why did you finish the circle? I didn't answer right away, and then I said, because I was already a part of it, and I meant it, not just marked, not just chosen, made. They didn't follow us, not physically, but that night I woke, gasping in a motel bathtub. Felt something leave my mouth. I checked the mirror. My reflection was smiling, but I wasn't. We tried to go to the state police. They listened for a while. We showed them the journal, the photos, even the map. They took notes, promised follow-up. The next day, the office we met them in was empty. No record of our visit. The map was gone. Riley went off grid after that, burned her ID, changed her name. I don't blame her. Sometimes she texts me 3 words, "You still dreaming?" I never reply, but she already knows the answer. The dreams haven't stopped, not since the altar. Some nights I wake up digging into the earth with my hands. Once, I'd woke to find I'd drawn the spiral on my own chest in pen. Another time, it was burned in with a lighter. No memory, just the pain. Something changed in me down there, not just fear, recognition. The same way you recognize a face in a crowd you don't remember meeting, but somehow know. Whatever watches from beneath the world, it knows me now, and I think it's waiting. The ritual didn't fail. It just needed more time. Maybe 7 years, maybe less. And when it starts again, I don't think I'll be the sacrifice. I think I'll be the one holding the knife. It's been 6 months since I left Harrow's Creek. 6 months since the mask, since the altar, since I bled into that final mark. I live in a cabin now, edge of a forgotten highway, too small to show up on most maps. I don't have a phone, no internet, no badge, no name on the mailbox. People don't find me out here, at least not the kind that matter, but I still see them, in the trees, on the roadside, in the smoke rising from my fire at night, shapes forming and reforming. Sometimes it's the mayor's face, other times it's mine. I've kept the knife, the one they tried to use on me. It hasn't rusted. It never dulls. When I hold it, I hear whispers. Not loud, not urgent, just familiar. Like a mother's lullaby in a language I've never learned, but understand anyway. I keep thinking about the ritual, about what it really was. It's easy to believe I stopped it. Easy to think bleeding into the final mark sealed the gate. What if that's not what it did? What if I opened it the only way it could? What if I didn't interrupt the ritual? What if I completed it? Sometimes I dream of the orchard. It's grown back now, not burned, not dead. The trees are taller than they should be. Their roots coil above the ground like muscles, stretching, pulsing, and in the center, there's a child wearing a mask made of bark. They don't speak, but they always turn and point at me. I know what Riley would say, that we got out, that we survived, but I don't think we did. Not all of us, not all of me. I still remember what the mayor said. The Watcher chose you. What he chooses is his. I've come to believe the ritual wasn't just about feeding something beneath the world. It was about transforming the world itself, making it ready, preparing it for when the veil thins and what lies underneath pushes through, one vessel at a time. And I was the first, or maybe just the next in a very long line. I write this now not as a warning, because it's already too late for that, but as a record, in case someone finds this cabin, in case they wonder what happened to Sam Mercer, detective, Harrow's Creek PD. Tell them the truth. Tell them it wasn't a cult. Tell them it wasn't insanity. Tell them it was the circle, and it never ends. It only turns and waits and watches just like he does. He is patient, he is hungry, and he remembers. They always ask if I feel guilty. Guilty? No, I feel precise. See, killing isn't about muscle, it's about restraint. It's about understanding the space between cause and effect, knowing how small an action needs to be to ruin someone's life. People think murder is loud, guns, blood, screams, but the cleanest work is always the quietest. I haven't pulled a trigger in 2 years. My method? Simple. I hand them an envelope. That's it. They open it, they look inside, and they die. Not later, not eventually, not the in a week from poisoning kind of death. Now. Violent, inevitable, unstoppable. It doesn't matter if they're 10 feet away or 10,000. Once they've seen it, it's over. I don't know what it is exactly. Some image, something wrong. A face, maybe. Not a normal one. I've never looked. I never will. I just know what it does. I got it from a man in Prague who wouldn't stop shaking. He never said where it came from. He just handed me the envelope and said, "If you look at this, you die. But if you show it to someone else, you control death itself." He slit his own throat a few hours later. I figured that was my confirmation enough. Let me tell you about a few of my cases. Case 1. An accountant who snitched on the wrong cartel. I slipped the envelope into a padded mailer, added some fake IRS insignia, dropped it off at his office. He opened it around 10:46 a.m. I know because traffic cameras 2 blocks away caught the windows of his floor exploding outward. Witnesses say they heard a howling, like an animal being tortured, but no animal was found. They never really find anything. Not really. Case 2. A defense contractor with blood on his hands and $1 million bounty on his head. He liked to jog the same park trail every morning at 5:30 a.m., creature of habit. I taped the envelope to a public bench with a note that said, "This is what you did to them." He couldn't help himself. Curiosity wins every time. I wasn't there when it happened, didn't need to be, but I saw the footage later. 12 seconds after he sat down, every dog in the neighborhood started barking. Then the cameras cut out. And case 3. It's a night's job, the one that went wrong. His name was Bruckner. No first name, just Bruckner. Like a villain in a cheap spy novel. Arms dealer. Ruthless, slippery. He operated out of an abandoned chemical plant on the outskirts of the city. Guards, dogs, cameras, paranoia incarnate. I had a plan. I always have a plan. I infiltrated the plant through an old maintenance shaft. Got in just past 2 a.m., masked and silent. I left the envelope in a secure case inside his office. Top drawer, right under a fake contract he couldn't ignore. Clean, smooth, just like every other job. But I hesitated. I don't know why. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was getting arrogant. When I closed the case, the corner of the photo was sticking out. It was bent. I don't like imperfections. So I reached in to straighten it. And that's when it happened. The case's lid was polished, like a mirror, just for a fraction of a second. A glimpse. Not the whole thing. Not even the face. Just a blur. Pale, elongated, off. Like seeing a mannequin move when it shouldn't. I dropped the case. My heart stuttered. But I kept saying, it wasn't the face. You didn't see the face. You didn't. I left immediately. Didn't even wait for the kill. Didn't check the cameras. Didn't follow protocol. I just ran. That was 2 hours ago. I've been in my motel room since. Showered, changed clothes, cleaned every surface I touched. Standard cleanup. I keep telling myself, you didn't see it. You didn't. But then I started hearing it. At first it was faint, like wind through broken glass. And then, crying, sobbing, far away, somewhere in the distance. I turned off everything. TV, fan, lights. Held my breath. It kept going. Soft, wet sobs. Like someone grieving hard enough to choke on it. And then came the screaming. It wasn't close, not yet, but it was coming. Like it had found a scent. I stood still for what felt like an hour. Every minute the screaming got closer, more distorted, higher pitched. Pain layered on rage, layered on something I can't name. Something primal. Something wrong. I locked the door, bolted the windows, moved the dresser in front, sat down with my back to the wall, my briefcase clutched in both hands like it could still protect me. But I know it won't. I'm recording this now because I don't know how long I've got. The screaming is getting louder. It's in the building now. I heard the fire door slam open 6 floors down, and then 5, and then 4. It's not opening doors. It's tearing straight through them. I still want to believe I didn't see it, that the angle was wrong, that it wasn't full exposure, but deep down, I know. I know because something is weeping inside my building, and it's not human. I can't move. I can't breathe. I think this is what guilt feels like. No, not guilt. Fear. For the first time in years, I'm afraid. And all I can do is sit here and wait. 3, 2, 1. They say the hills of Afghanistan whisper at night. I used to think that was just poetic nonsense. But now I know they do. They whisper, and sometimes they watch. I was stationed at an outpost near the northeastern mountains, far from any village, tucked between rocky ridges and dry riverbeds. I was the designated night patrol specialist, mostly because I didn't sleep much. PTSD, insomnia, whatever they wanted to call it. But it made me good for the graveyard shift. Just me, my rifle, my night vision, and my thermals. The nights were always quiet, eerily so. The wind would kick up dust, and the occasional howl of a wild dog or the distant rattle of an animal would punctuate the silence. But that wasn't what bothered me. It was what I saw. It started 2 weeks in. I was scanning the ridge lines with my thermal scope when I noticed something. A figure, too tall, too still. It glowed faintly on thermal, meaning it was warm, but it wasn't moving like a person. It just stood there, watching us from the edge of a cliff about 400 meters out. I radioed it in. Possible heat signature, North Ridge, 11 o'clock, holding position. But the other guys didn't see anything with their scopes. Could be a goat, one of them joked, or your lack of sleep catching up to you. But it wasn't a goat, and it wasn't in my head. The next night, it was there again. Same place, same posture. Only this time, when I blinked, it was gone. Just like that. 1 second, it was a glowing silhouette, human-like, but too tall and too thin. And the next, nothing. By night 4, it had moved. It wasn't on the ridge anymore. It was closer. Only a couple 100 meters out. It didn't walk. It didn't crawl. It shifted. One frame, it was one place. The next, it It was 10 feet to the left, like watching a corrupted video feed with missing frames. I started recording the thermal feed on my helmet cam. I showed it to my commanding officer the next day. He squinted at the footage, but all he saw was static. Nothing but interference, he said. These mountains mess with the signal. But it wasn't signal interference, because I was seeing it with my own eyes. By the 6th night, the dreams started. I'd close my eyes during the day and see it. That thing. No mouth, no face, just slits where eyes should be, radiating heat like coals in a fire. It would crouch over the edge of my cot in the dream, dripping something thick and dark onto the floor. I'd wake up to find nothing there, but I always felt watched, even in the daylight. A few of the locals, the Afghan soldiers we worked with, started acting strange too. One of them, Arash, refused to go out past sunset. When I asked him why, he just said, "There's something old in these hills, something not meant for our world." I laughed it off. Like a djinn? He didn't smile. Not a djinn. Worse, a mistake. That night I went out alone, against orders. I needed proof. I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. I hiked up the western slope with the thermal scope, scanning every few feet. And then I saw it, clear as day, not on the ridge, not behind a rock, right in front of me. It was crouching low, maybe 20 feet away. The heat signature was blinding, like a burning white flame on my scope. When I lifted my NVGs, there was nothing there, just empty air. But the ground was crunching. Something was breathing. I turned back, heart slamming, and ran. But I swear I heard it behind me. Not footsteps, not claws. Something skittering. Back at base, they found me screaming in my bunk hours later. I don't remember crawling back. They said I had torn up my hands and knees like I'd been scrambling across rock. I tried to show them the thermal footage, but it was gone, replaced with white static. The last thing I remembered before they medevaced me out was standing on the tarmac, looking back toward the hills one last time. And there it was. Not through a scope, not through thermal, just standing on the far ridge, barely a silhouette against the night sky, watching. I'm back home now, dishonorably discharged for mental instability. They think I snapped. But I still have one clip they didn't erase. One frame of thermal video. It's blurry and burned with interference. But in the middle of the static, you can just make out a shape. Too long, too thin, and glowing white hot. Some nights I wake up to the sheets soaked in sweat, sure I heard something skittering across my roof. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see two glowing slits in the dark, watching me from somewhere just beyond the veil of heat, like it followed me home. I never used to be scared of the dark. When I was a kid, I used to love it. Used to sit under blankets with a flashlight and imagine I was deep in the earth somewhere, surrounded by silence and stone. Caves fascinated me. They still do in a way. But now, when I think about the dark, I don't picture mystery or wonder. I picture teeth and long, pale arms and the silence that comes after a scream. It started 3 months ago. We were a team of 6, a mix of cavers, climbers, explorers, hobbyists mostly, but serious enough to be reckless. Nate was the one that found the shaft, said it opened up after a tremor somewhere in the Appalachians, in a no man's land of state forests not marked on any hiking trail. No map, no records, just a split in the earth that hadn't been there last season. Of course, Nate wanted in, and if Nate was going in, the rest of us followed. That's how it always was. There were 6 of us. Nate, our leader, ex-military, calm under pressure, never showed fear. Sophia, his girlfriend, and our medic, sharp, no nonsense, good under stress. Ethan, the navigator, used to work park service, had an internal compass like a hawk. Corey, the gearhead, cameras, batteries, drones, audio. If it beeped or blinked, he had it. Marla, quiet and strong, rope expert, certified cave diver. And me, Ben. Mostly I just carried gear, asked questions, and tried to keep everyone laughing when it got tense. We reached the site mid-morning. A jagged wound in the forest floor, about 6 feet wide, maybe 12 long, ringed with broken trees and loose stone. You wouldn't have even seen it if you weren't looking. It blended in with the brush like it was trying to stay hidden. Nate was ecstatic. Virgin ground, he said. This is what it's all about. The descent took nearly an hour. The shaft dropped 70 feet straight down into an entry chamber big enough to stand in. It was quiet, too quiet. No drip of water, no wind, just still air and the sound of our breathing. The deeper chambers were tight, crawling space only, winding down into blackness. Ethan marked the walls with chalk as we moved. I remember the first time we stopped and clicked our lights off just to feel the darkness. It was absolute, like being buried alive. We set up base in a larger chamber about 400 feet in. It had a strange shape to it, not rounded like water-carved rock, but jagged, like something had torn the stone outward from inside. Corey set up a motion-activated camera facing the passage we came from. We didn't think we'd need it. It was maybe 2 hours in when Marla first went missing. We'd split into pairs, me with Ethan, Nate with Sophia. Marla alone to rig a rope bridge across the narrow trench. We were only 30 feet from each other, radios on, clear line of communication. But then she stopped responding. At first, we thought it was a tech issue. Ethan and I doubled back, saw her rope coiled neatly on the ground. Her pack leaned against the wall, half unzipped. But no Marla. No blood, no drag marks, no footprints leading out. We radioed each other. Nate told us to stay put. Probably just wandered off to check something and lost signal. But that didn't make sense. Marla was methodical. She wouldn't leave her gear. Sophia was the first to say it. She didn't just wander off. We searched for hours. And then we checked Corey's camera, the one facing the passage to base. It had recorded something. At 12:42 p.m., there was movement in the hallways. The video is short. Marla walks past the camera, calm, normal, heading toward us. Then the feed glitches. When it clears, the hallway is empty. Marla's gone, like she stepped off the face of the earth. No sound, no scream, just nothing. We argued for a while. Sophia wanted to ascend and call for help. Nate said we could handle it. We don't know, she's hurt. Maybe she got disoriented? But none of us believed that, especially when Corey said something odd. The footage. It wasn't just glitched. It was edited, like someone spliced out a frame. And someone, or something, had to be holding the camera to do that. We should have left then, but we didn't. We camped the night in base chamber, all of us huddled near our lights, barely speaking. That was the last time we were all together. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, watching my headlamp throw shadows against the jagged rock above us. Every little creak or shuffle made my heart jump. You'd think after years of caving, I'd be used to the noises, the natural settling of stone, the shift of gear, the occasional drip of groundwater. But that cave was silent, and silence is never natural underground. Every hour or so, Nate would whisper into the radio, "Marla, this is Nate. Respond if you hear us." Nothing. Sometime past 4 a.m., the camera beeped. Corey jumped to his feet. "Motion triggered," he whispered. We all gathered around the tiny screen as he rewound the feed. The playback was jittery, almost like old VHS, streaks of digital noise tearing across the screen. And then something moved. Not a person. A shape, tall, hunched, and pale, just outside the range of the infrared. It skittered past the mouth of the tunnel, fast but smooth, like it had too many joints bending in the wrong direction. It wasn't walking, it was crawling, fast, with limbs that didn't make sense. Sophia gasped. Ethan swore. Nate just stared. "That wasn't Maria," Corey whispered. We started arguing again. Sophia wanted to go topside. Nate refused. "If we all leave now, we lose Marla for good. We regroup, do a sweep, carefully, together." We agreed on a tighter formation, no one alone. The camera stayed at base. I think Corey already knew he was next. We went back down the southern tunnel, where Marla had last been seen. Found more claw marks, not like natural erosion. These were deep, gouged into the stone in uneven patterns. At first, Ethan tried to rationalize them. Bear? Cougar, maybe? But he didn't sound convinced, because what kind of animal leaves marks 6 feet up the walls? What kind of animal climbs across the ceiling? That was when the light in Corey's helmet blinked out, just for a second. We turned, asked if he was good. He gave a thumbs up and replaced the battery. Nothing more happened, not then. But later, back at base, we noticed something strange in the footage. One of Corey's GoPros had been recording during the hike. When we played it back, at the moment his light cut out, the audio dropped to static, just for 3 seconds. But then a new sound, low, gurgling, almost like breathing, right next to the mic. But Corey never reacted to it. He didn't hear it, only the camera did. That night, we set up motion sensors near camp, and Nate decided we should sleep in shifts. Corey volunteered to take first watch. He sat near the tunnel entrance, clutching a thermal scope and a flare. I woke up to screaming. Sophia's hand was already on my arm when I bolted upright. "He's gone." "What?" She pointed toward the tunnel. Corey's flare was still burning on the stone. But he was gone. No sign of a struggle, no dropped gear, just his thermal scope, lying in the dirt, still on. We looked through it. There was a shape, just at the edge of the heat signature range, still, not moving, watching, and then it vanished. Ethan started to panic. "This isn't right. This isn't a cave system. It's something else." Sophia agreed. "We need to leave, now." But the passage back up was wrong. I don't know how else to say it. We followed the chalk markings Ethan had made, his own system, reliable, foolproof, but they were smeared, replaced with long, jagged scratch marks. At first, Nate thought we had just taken a wrong turn, but every chamber looked familiar and unfamiliar, like the cave was shifting around us. And then the sound started, far off at first, a low scraping, like nails on slate. Then the flickering started. Our headlamps, all of them, dimmed in unison. Nate slammed his against the wall. "Batteries are full. This doesn't make sense." We found a chamber to rest in. No one spoke. We were all listening for footsteps, for breath, for anything. And that's when Ethan stood up. I think I hear her," he whispered. "Who?" "Marla." He walked to the edge of the tunnel and stood there, listening. And then, without a word, he walked into the dark. We shouted, scrambled after him, but by the time we rounded the corner, he was gone. No echo, no footsteps, just silence. Again. That left 3 of us. Me, Nate, and Sophia. 3 out of 6. Nate finally stopped pretending everything was fine. "We need to get out. Now. Even if we have to carve our way out. So we packed light, left most of the gear. Sophia tried to pull the footage from Corey's camera, the one still sitting at base, but it was corrupted. The last frame before static showed Corey staring off into the tunnel, mouth open, not afraid, but confused, like he saw something familiar, something he recognized. Then the video cut to black. We didn't speak for a long time after Ethan vanished. The cave felt tighter, like it was breathing. Like every inch we moved forward, it pressed closer around us. The air had gone sour, not from rot or sulfur, just wrong. Hard to breathe, like the oxygen was being slowly pulled away. Sophia was different now. She kept glancing over her shoulder, mumbling things under her breath, short phrases, repeating them. I saw it. I saw it in the light. She wasn't sleeping, and neither was I. Nate was the only one who seemed to be keeping it together, but even he was sweating constantly, checking his weapon every 10 minutes, like he expected something to come barreling around the corner at any second. We squeezed through a passage where the walls narrowed to a slit, only wide enough for one person at a time. I went first. While I was crawling through, my headlamp caught something on the rock. Writings. Dozens of words scratched into the wall, etched deep with something sharp. Some in English, some in symbols I don't recognize. But I remember one line exactly. Not a cave, not a place. It's a mouth. I didn't tell the others. What was the point? We kept moving, trying to find the original entry shaft, but it was like the cave had swallowed it whole. Sophia had stopped responding to us at times, walking a few feet behind, muttering to herself, flashlight trembling in her hand. At one point, Nate pulled me aside and whispered, "She's slipping. We need to keep her together or she's gonna get herself killed." I nodded, but I think we both knew it was already too late. Later that night, or what passed for night down there, we camped in a chamber shaped like a bent rib cage. The walls curved inward unnaturally, and the ceiling was too low to stand. Nate rigged up a tripwire with a flare and a canteen. It was crude, but better than nothing. Sophia sat with her back to the wall, knees pulled up to her chest, and then she said something that chilled me. "He's been here before." I looked at her. "Who?" She stared at the floor. "The tall man, pale, the one that took Marla." Nate froze. "You saw it?" She nodded. First night, after the camera beeped, I didn't want to say anything. I thought it wasn't real. I thought it was just me. "What did it look like?" I asked quietly. She swallowed hard, like a man, but wrong. Too long, bent in the middle, arms like blades, no eyes, just holes. She looked up at us, but it knew me. It moved like it had seen me before. We decided to rest in shifts again. Nate took first watch. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I kept hearing something, like fingers dragging across stone, just outside the reach of our lights. The sound came and went, faint, taunting. Sometime later, I must have drifted off. I woke up to silence, too much silence. Nate was still awake, staring down the tunnel with the flare in his hand. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't look away. I saw it again. My blood went cold. "Where?" He nodded down the tunnel, just standing there, watching, and then it vanished. I looked to where Sophia had been. She was gone. No scream, no shuffle, no gear left behind. Gone. Again. Nate stared at the ground, jaw tight. I whispered, "She didn't even cry out." He shook his head. "She didn't need to." "What does that mean?" "She wanted to go." We didn't talk much after that. We searched for her out of principle, not hope. Found one of her gloves in a side tunnel, soaked through with something thick and dark, not quite blood, too black, too viscous. It steamed when we touched it. Nate wrapped it in a plastic sample bag. I don't know why. As we moved, we kept finding more of the same markings on the walls. Not scratches, symbols. Circles with lines through them, rough humanoid shapes. And then we found the bones. Not scattered, not buried. Arranged. In rows, stacked with intention. Rib cages on one side, skulls on another. Femurs in a spiral along the chamber floor. Some cracked open, some still red. I threw up. Nate didn't say anything, just stared at the skulls, and then he whispered, "It's intelligent." We made camp again, though neither of us pretended to sleep. Nate took the first shift. I sat in the far corner of the chamber, staring at the wall, counting the seconds between the strange sounds echoing through the tunnels. That's when I heard him muttering. I crept closer. Nate was whispering to someone, but he was alone. "I know you're listening. I know you've been following. Come on then. You want me? Come on." He was holding the flare. His hands trembled. I touched his shoulder. He nearly struck me. His eyes were wide, bloodshot. "It's baiting us," he said. "Like a spider, it wants us to wander. It knows we'll get desperate." I asked what he was planning. He lifted a flare, lit it, and pointed it down the tunnel. "I'm gonna find it." "Alone?" He nodded. "You'll never outrun it, but maybe I can slow it down." Before I could stop him, he was gone, down the tunnel, alone. And that was the last time I saw Nate. I was alone. The word doesn't even cover it. I wasn't just without my team, I was without context. Time meant nothing. The darkness wasn't dark anymore. It was alive. It had weight, texture, movement. The stone around me felt less like walls and more like flesh, like I was inside something ancient and sleeping, or not sleeping. I tried to find my way back to base camp, to the last place that felt safe, but the tunnel was different now, narrower, warped, as if it'd been shifted behind us. Not like a collapse, more like a rearrangement, like the cave itself was breathing, and I was stuck inside its lung. The chalk markings were gone. My light flickered every few minutes. My hands were scraped raw from the rock, and my water was gone. I tried calling out, not for my friends. I knew they weren't coming. I called out for it, whatever it was. "Come on then," I whispered. "Let's finish this." But there was no answer, just the sound, skittering. Not fast, not urgent, just present, as if it had always been there, behind the walls, above the ceiling, beneath the floor. I kept moving. My legs shook, but I couldn't stop. Something primal kept pushing me forward. The part of your brain that existed before tools and fire. The part that knows when it's being hunted. Eventually, I found the den. There's no other word for it. It was massive, a cathedral of bone and stone. The walls were lined with carvings, not with tools, but clawed out by a hand. Long grooves, spirals, human-like shapes curled in agony, thousands of them, layered over each other like memories. In the center of the room was a mound of bodies. Not fresh, not all of them. Some were skeletal, some were recent, stripped of clothing, bent in unnatural ways. I recognized a boot, Marla's. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. There was no air left in my lungs, just cold, just silence. And then I heard it, not skittering this time. Breathing, behind me. I turned, slowly, and there it was, 7 feet tall, hunched, with limbs too long for its torso and hands that ended in curled claws, dragging along the stone. Skin the color of ash, stretched tight over muscle and bone. No eyes, just sunken pits where its gaze should have been. But it saw me, not with sight, with something deeper. It tilted its head, not like a predator, like a curious child. I raised the flare. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped it. "Stay back," I whispered. It took one step forward, not fast, not threatening, just inevitable. I backed away slowly, circling the mound of bones, keeping my eyes locked on it. It followed, and then it spoke, but not in words. Inside my head, a voice like a dry whisper cracking through the walls of my mind. "Now you understand." I didn't ask what it meant. I didn't need to. It didn't kill out of hunger. It didn't kill out of instinct. It killed to be remembered, to become part of the cave, to make us the markings on the walls, the echoes, the scratches in the stone. I don't remember how I got out. I remember light, real light, and cold air and the sound of a helicopter. They said I was wandering through the woods barefoot, clothes torn, face streaked with blood that wasn't mine. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. The official report says my team was lost in a cave-in, that I suffered trauma and delusions, that there's no physical evidence of anything unusual underground. But I know better, because sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I still see it, that cathedral of bone, the endless spiral of tunnels, and the thing with no eyes, still watching, still listening, still waiting. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, please hit the like button. While you're there, leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I'm still trying to find a good upload schedule, but I'm shooting for 2 to 3 videos per week. Anyways, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye for now.